Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Ryan with Propelio, and today is Grant Teach Me Something.
With Daniel over here too.
And Daniel, obviously, well, I was going to get there.
No, well, I got there first.
He got there first. Anyway, today we're going to do a little things differently, just because it seems like everybody's like, what's better, rentals, cash flow, wholesaling, owner finance, blah blah blah. And the right answer is whatever you're comfortable with. But so, disclaimer. Grant wants everybody to know that he is not an idiot. He realizes that you can make money doing rentals. And Daniel is also not an idiot, and he realizes you can make money doing owner finance.
No, you can't.
But for the purposes of this video, Grant is going to be taking the flag, the banner of owner finance.
The correct way of doing investing.
There we go. And Daniel's going to be doing the rental side and the landlord side.
The smart way of doing investing.
Right. So that's kind of where we're going with. As always, please join in on the comments. Throw the love, throw the likes, throw the fire emojis, the pregnant woman emoji, all those things. Ask questions, throw in your comments. Even though it's going to be against these two guys, because they're going to be fighting it out, literally and figuratively and metaphorically.
I came prepared for a gunfight just in case it got nasty.
Is that why you brought a knife?
I've always got to have some form of protection.
So anyway, but that's where we're going. We're going to be talking about rentals versus the owner finance world, pros, cons of both. Again, if you have comments, if you have questions, if you have points, counterpoints that you want to throw in, obviously this is Facebook Live, so join in.
Yeah.
Can I simplify the debate for just a second, though?
Grant's an idiot.
Grant, you're wrong. Done.
And that's our show. Please like and comment.
Every week, every Tuesday, or every Wednesday.
All right,
man.
so that's the obviously, and then let's do a book at the end of it. We'll figure out what book that'll be.
Ooh.
But what we'll do is we'll do those random Facebook comment picker thing like we've been doing the past couple times. So ask questions. The more comments you make, obviously, the more chances you'll have in the automated Facebook counter picker thingy.
Yeah.
So rentals versus owner finance. What is it? Rentals versus, is it landlord versus bank?
Yeah.
Landlords versus bank, and go.
Landlord versus banks and go. Landlords win.
So here's the thing, okay? I think that there has been a false equation that happens in most new investors, most people that are on the outside looking in, a lot of people who've been in it for a little while, where they see that rich people have rentals and they think that rich people got rich with rentals. And I can pretty much 100% guarantee you that that didn't happen. You get rich and then you get rentals.
I hear an So,
I've known
Daniel?
way too many people get filthy rich off of rentals.
Starting from rentals?
Starting from rentals.
Did they have money at all before they started that?
No, I mean, I say no money at all before. I'm talking like $30,000 they had before. That's
fair.
not like money.
That's not money.
That's you've put 5 years into your 401k. Yeah. But I mean, what happened with a lot of those people, they just bought at the right time in the cycle. They were getting rentals in 08, 09, 010, and if you've seen the appreciation cycle we've gone through in the past 6 years, like here they are sitting on $500,000 worth of equity that they cash out and reinvest into bigger investments.
And I'll throw in also, as a moderating factor, I'm just throwing this, I'm hearing $30,000 buy a rental. Everybody I know that does owner finance, they have a little bit more knowledge in the game of real estate investing. They have a little bit more mentorship, coaching.
Hopefully.
Well, they just
hopefully you see some bad people out there.
Hopefully, at least in my experience, they know. Oh yeah. Anyway, they know more about real estate at that point in time to be able to do the owner finance deal, whereas anybody can be a landlord. You just need to have a property. I'm not saying they're all good. So just from a moderating in-between factor, it just seems like the knowledge. Basically, you could be stupid and be a landlord.
Well, you got to be stupid to be a landlord.
Anyway, but I just want to throw that out there. Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt your point.
Well, but here's the thing with that, though. I mean, if you've got $30,000 and you're trying to get a rental with it, you've got to be bankable.
You do have to have W-2 income. You do have to be able to get some type of loan, or you need to be able to partner with somebody.
Right.
You don't always have to depend upon your own assets to do something.
Right.
But some of the benefits to the rental side of it, and I think the biggest issue I have with owner financing is whenever it is used as like a sole model for the business, because you're leaving so much money on the table. Absolutely so much money on the table when every deal you do is owner finance. Like if you're acquiring subject to, that's great, but turning around and selling every single one of them on a wrap just doesn't make sense to me, because you leave a massive amount of potential profit on the table. I know when you owner finance and you go amortize a note out over the course of time, you're going to get the interest payments, you're going to get the benefits of that over time, but you're losing inflation, you're losing against inflation, you're losing out on the amortization of somebody else paying down the note for you, and then still retaining the asset. I mean,
can we go into that because this is still a Grant Teach Me Something, or it doesn't have to be Grant, but it's something about teaching. Can you go a little bit, just a quick 30-second detour, and really explain out what you mean by capturing inflation, capturing appreciation? I realize that we could do a 3-week series on it, but what's the 30-second elevator?
If I borrow $100,000 from the bank today, everybody knows in 30 years from now it's not going to be worth the same $100,000. The difference is whenever I borrow the $100,000 from the bank today and I'm paying back that loan 30 years from now, I'm paying back that loan with crappy dollars when I borrowed good dollars to begin with. So I can hedge against inflation by leveraging the bank, because every dollar I pay back to them that's worth less than the dollar I borrowed from them is a win for me.
Does that make sense? Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the challenge there, though, and kind of the counterpoint to that is that, you know, if you don't plan on making any money from the rental until you have that rental paid off, I agree, right? But I think too many people get into rentals thinking, well, I'm going to make all this money from rentals, and I just don't see, and I mean, you've seen people that have done it, right, with 30 grand. I just don't see people getting that without being bankable, without already having capital, without already having the ability to get that money. And then on top of that, if you're going to make money, if you want to actually make money with that rental on a monthly, let's get some cash flow in basis, you basically have to be having a rent that's twice your debt payment, and the likelihood of that happening is just very slim most of the time. I would say at least 90% of the time. When I talk to a landlord who tells me how much cash flow they're getting, they tell me, oh, well, I'm getting $400 of cash flow. And I say, cool, so what does that mean? And that means to them, they're charging $900 of rent and paying $500 to the bank. And that is not $400 of cash flow. That is a gross income level, right? So what I'm saying is until, and that's a lower end rent, obviously, right? Until you get to that point where you've doubled your debt payment for the rental income, you're not going to be making any money on that rental. You're going to get appreciation for it. You're going to have a piggy bank that you might be able to sell the property and get a large lump sum of money in, but it's not going to be that thing that pays for groceries. Because, you know, one air conditioning unit goes out, you pay $5 grand, you're not making profits on that unit for a year plus.
I'm right there with you on that. I mean, a lot of people buy rentals for cash flow. It is not my opinion that rentals are good for cash flow. Most of the time, yeah, you might make $300, $400, $500, $600, $700, $800 a month, but by the time you add back in your repairs expenses and stuff like that, you're kind of in a situation where you're not really cash flowing. Most of the landlords I talk to, but there are right ways to landlord or wrong ways to landlord, and like we've already talked about, you can be an idiot and be a landlord. But if you come and approach the landlording as a business, though, and you're buying at the right price at the right time with the right business model, the business model being go in there, completely rehab that thing day one. It's not like go in there and do a lipstick type of rehab. Go in there, put the new hot water heater in, put the new air conditioning system in, get the roof taken care of, make the inside of the property look really good so you can attract the right tenants, price it right so that way those tenants want to stay, and then your deferred maintenance should be minimal to none. So I'm not doing air conditioning work, I'm not doing plumbing work, all that's already been taken care of and accounted for in my acquisition. And if I buy it right, I should be able to do that acquisition with limited to no money ultimately out of pocket. So then I end up with a free house with a tenant that's paying it for me, and then I'm not really having to deal with the tenant's toilet and trash. And if I time it right and I buy these at a low point in the market cycle, I acquire 10 to 15 of them, ride through an appreciation wave, Then I can turn around and sell them all off, while I technically probably did cash flow through them because I didn't have the deferred maintenance. Sell them off at the prime, like I've got a 7-year on my hot water heater. I've got probably 5 years of good service on my air conditioning system before I need to start maintaining it. My roof's got 30 years, but we're in Texas, it's more like 12. So once I'm 5 to 7 years into this rental, sell it off before all that maintenance has to come back up again, keep my cash flow, roll those equity and the appreciation that I get from it into more and bigger investments.
Boom! Yeah, exactly.
Can you drop a lapel mic?
I know.
It's hard for us to banter back and forth on this because...
Real quick, I did hear something, and I don't think you pointed it out, and you haven't pointed out yet, and I know we're still very early in this topic, but I do want to point out that in both strategies, if you do it right, you can get essentially a free house. The only difference is in 20 years of cash flow, you still have a free house per se paid off that's still income generating. But in this model, you have 20 to 30 years of a little bit better cash flow, zero headaches, but no house.
Yeah, and you get $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 up front from the sale, right?
That's
so
beautiful.
that's another thing about owner financing that I love that you don't get with the rental world, because so I mean those are valid points, right? Everything that you're laying out there.
Are you sure? Because I made most of that shit up.
Yeah, you were on the fly with it. No, I mean it's a valid way to look at it. Now the problems that I have with the people for looking at it from the terms of what most people who are watching this video are is the part where you said, well, just buy 15 of them and the lower part of the cycle, right?
Right.
Well, yeah, okay. If you can buy a bunch of rentals in the lower part of the cycle, that is great. You do get those benefits. But when are we? Right now, A, we're not in that lower part of the cycle. So how do you make money right now? And B, when you do those rentals, yes, you do get the appreciation, that kind of stuff. But the people that most of the time that I'm interacting with, both getting into this business and fairly seasoned into this, need that today money and the tomorrow money.
Real quick, just because I think is poignant a word?
It's P-O-I-G-N-A.
Pertinent to this conversation is there was an article, I didn't read it, but somebody I trust in the economics world read it. So it's third party of a third party. Anyway, but he was just pointing out that the DFW market right now, it's not in a boom, it's actually a correction. Because the DFW market has always been more similar to a market like San Francisco, and we have just never gotten to those prices. So we're actually in a correction, we're not in a boom. Real quick, just because we do have some comments coming in, and there's a lot of questions coming in. One thing Marcus Ruiz was saying is owner finance better than private money? At a whole, that question, there's so many different levels because you can use private money for everything.
Well, and
It all
at
depends
its
on
core,
terms.
owner financing is private money. It's private money from your seller, right? Private money is something that you should be employing everywhere. Both, if you can get long-term private money and you want to employ that into a rental, cool. If you can get long-term private capital, you want to deploy that into a owner finance, cool.
Subtle plug. Or if you have 30 grand, just give me 20 grand to mentor you, and we can use the 10 to do some else. Wah, wah. Anyway, sorry.
I do more mentorship. Today is National. Did you know that today is National Creative Day? You do, because Travion told us all at the beginning. CreativeCashFlow.com.
Hashtag National Creative Something Day.
Anyway, so private money is something that you've got to have, right? And right now is the time when we are in a market like this where we don't have a national crisis going on. People have capital they want to deploy. So you should be, if you're the person watching this video and you're the one person willing to go out there and be doing the work, you should be getting private capital with no issue. Now, here's the thing. That owner financing in and of itself is private capital. You are purchasing a property from somebody and they are funding it to you for you, right? That's one of the things that I really like about owner financing here. You talked about, well, go out and buy 15, rentals. Well, Fannie Mae caps you at 10, right?
But that's not that big of an issue. So many people make an issue out of that. That's not really that big of a problem.
There's so much money out there.
Right, and I mean, as you have your portfolio growing, you do have other funding things available to you. But
you get to 10 of them and just refi into a portfolio loan.
Yeah,
and
that's
then
what
you
I'm
just
saying.
start
Like
over
once you
again.
get 8 to 10, you do have some other possibilities that let that open
You
up.
can start early from a local bank, make friends with them.
But at the end of the day, it's still your name on that loan,
Yeah.
right? You are responsible, you are liable, you have that debt to you. With owner financing, I have months where I buy 10 or 15 properties, and none of that debt is in my name. It is all completely non-recourse in the LLC, and that's an asset that I'm going to turn around on and make $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 on the sale, and then start $300, $400, $500, $600, $700. I mean, I've got a couple of properties that are cash flowing $800, $900 net with owner financing that I made $7,000 to $10,000 on up front, and I never have to deal with it again. I mean, my joke always is like, if you've got a mortgage with the bank, when was the last time you called Bank of America and told them that your toilet was leaking? Like, they don't care. They're not going to do anything about that. We are becoming the bank. So for those of you out there that are looking at, well, what is my best strategy, right? Like, that's what this whole conversation is about. What is the best strategy for me, whether I'm getting into this business or I've only done 50 or 60 properties, whatever that might be, as you're building that out. Well, you can't buy, we talked about this, like stealing Corey Thompson's, what do you get with $1 million net worth and $1 in your pocket? You get a bottle of Coke, right?
Diet Coke.
Diet Coke. Yeah. So you need today money. You got to be able to buy groceries. And so a lot of people turn to wholesaling or flipping for that today money. And then what they're losing out on is all the wonderful benefits on the long-term tomorrow money that you get out of a rental, that you get out of an owner finance deal. But if you just turn to a rental and make it all tomorrow money, well, you don't have the money to go buy your groceries. If you're trying to make this a full-time gig for you, you got 30 grand to live on for the next 8 months, and you blow it all on buying a rental, well, congratulations, you've just made $300 a month out of that 30 grand.
Well, I can completely and totally agree with everything you just said. You're kind of misappropriating data because you're saying, I blow $30,000 on a rental. You're not buying right. Like, if you're out there buying right, and you're able to refi at 80 cents on the dollar, and you're able to acquire at 78 cents on the dollar, you put 2 cents in your back pocket up front. I mean, if you're...
I'm waiting for you to finish so I can mic drop.
Why don't I get mic drops?
Because I saw it in your eyes. I totally messed up your point because you were like, motherfucker, I got this. I'm sorry, I just killed your moment.
When you're doing owner financing or rentals, it's all about buying right. You're talking about $800 to $900 a month in cash flow off of an owner finance property, and that is true cash flow.
Which is not
that's
normal.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
But that's because you bought it right. Holy shit, my computer's making noise. I don't know how to turn this off. I got distracted.
Real quick while he's distracted. No, just kidding.
But, oops, I just hit help. All right, back to the business. Whenever we're talking about owner finances and rentals, you have to buy them right. You buy the wrong owner finance deal and you just lost 20 grand. You buy the wrong rental, you lost 5 because that's the worst you could ever do at a rental. Nobody took bait on that, but no, seriously though, if you're not buying right,
you'll never lose money in real estate ever.
But if you've got completely
it.
disclosed that, if you don't lose money, you're not going aggressive enough. But with rentals, one of the added benefits to it is you can get them zero out of pocket. You can actually get them with money back into your pocket. So with owner financing, yes, you can get that upfront down payment. Mm-hmm. But with owner financing, you can get that upfront refi, or not the owner financing, but the rentals, I can get that upfront refi when bought right and put $10,000 to $15,000 in my back pocket and still own the asset.
I can also refi my underlying debt in the same way with owner financing and collect a $10,000, $15,000 down payment up front. You know what I mean? Like, that's something that's going to work on both sides. But I'm also getting a big chunk of change from my end occupant on top of what the bank is going to give me
what you're going to refi that deed of trust underneath with, what is that ever going to appreciate to? Or are you at a finite amount?
Well, and so, yeah, that's the thing. Like with rentals, you've got an appreciation of the property, right? The value in theory is going to go up. Over a long enough time period, it will go up, right?
Over a 30-year AM, it better.
Over a 30-year AM,
unless you live in Detroit.
There's always outlying problems.
Yeah, right. So you do get that appreciation on that. That is one of the things that you can capitalize on the rental, for sure. You do cash in with an owner financing with where you're at today. What's the value of the property today? You're cashing in on that, right? But the thing is that you're financing out, because one of the issues to that is that, hey, okay, so you're only ever going to have this and that's it with owner financing. But that's not entirely true, because when we are financing to our end buyer, we're financing at a 9.9% interest rate, right? Our debt is going to be at 4.5%, 6% interest rates. So our debt is getting paid off much more quickly than our income is getting paid off. So over time, our net worth still grows with owner financing, because the whole thing with the appreciation.
Over time, it goes to nothing.
Well, over 30 years, it goes to nothing, right? And that you do have to sprinkle in permanent money by the end, whether that is through rentals, through commercial buildings, getting into something like like a multifamily unit.
I think you're just mic dropping yourself.
I have okay.
This isn't fair. This is a manufactured debate. This is not Grant's not knowledgeable.
I know. I'm trying to like. I'm taking the side of owner financing here, guys. I want to be clear. We understand there are benefits to rentals, right? But anyway, to get back to my point, we've got, so with the rental, the argument is, hey, my net worth is going to go up. The value of this asset to me is going to go up over time. Therefore, why would I cash out on owner financing right now when I have a finite fixed rate? And that's not entirely true, because let's say I charge somebody $100,000 at 9.5%, and you're saying 80%, so we'll use the same 80% number. Let's say I owe 80% or 80% of that, which would be $80,000 at 4.5% interest, which is a very typical rate, which, by the way, I want to address that here in a second.
I need to take notes because you're smarter than I am, and I'm about to get squashed in numbers.
So what happens is they're paying me at 9.5% interest rate. That curve for the principal getting paid down is very gradual.
Right.
Whereas my $80,000 debt at 4.5%, that curve is much steeper. So in 5 years, that value of that asset to me, even though it's at a fixed rate that when I sold it, that value to my net worth is going to raise by a significant amount because I'm paying off the underlying debt much faster than they're paying their debt to me.
Okay.
So in both instances, you are raising your net worth. Now, are you planning to keep this rental for more than 30 years? Then yes, the rental is going to last you for more than 30 years, and that's going to give you that appreciation curve there. Are 95% of the investors out there buying rentals going to keep them for more than 30 years? Probably not. They've probably got an exit that's sooner in the 10 to 15, maybe even 20-year range. So when you're looking apples to apples at that point in time, both of our net worths are raising over time, except with this one, I never have to do the maintenance in 10 to 15 to 20 years. That is always handled by the buyer. I never have to worry about taxes or insurance going up. I never have to worry about that dip in the market when all of a sudden everything crashes and now rent rates are 30% less than they used to be, and now I get a vacancy and I'm having to sit vacant on a property for 3 months or whatever, looking for a new tenant because I already cashed in 10 years ago and that guy's still going to pay me for that 20-year time frame.
Boom!
Real quick, before we hear Daniel's thoughts, and I do just want to throw in there, thank you for your comments, thank you for watching. Just to make it a little fun, drop in the comments Team Rentals or Team OF, Team Owner Finance, whatever side of the fence you're on.
So drop in the comments if you're smart or if you're dumb.
Team Daniel, Team Grant, that'd be kind of fun too. Obviously, it's most of us are probably Team both, but for this. But a lot of people are watching. Did you want to respond to that, or do we want to jump into a couple questions?
I'd like to respond to that. I want to say thank you, Cameron, Daniel, Wade, all of y'all out there watching, Trenton, Lacey. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching us up here run our mouths. But going back to that, over a long enough time period, I am personally curious which one actually wins out in regards to appreciation. Like, if let's say we're looking at an average market and we're looking at a 4% annual appreciation compounded on let's say we have $80,000 worth of, or $100,000 asset.
You will win off of the compound interest on the appreciation.
Because over time,
I'm just arguing that it's not a null point. Okay. That we do still get an appreciation in our net worth, but it's not that it's not just a zero versus appreciation. That it's like appreciation versus more appreciation.
All right, that's fair. So let's take a look at one of the other 5 ways to make money in real estate, and that's depreciation. We've got the appreciation cycle that we're all looking forward to and hoping for when we're getting these things. But we also have the added benefit of the IRS depreciation schedule, which takes and allows us to remove earned income with a phantom loss. What are we going to do with that, like on owner financing? Because every single dollar that comes in, we're getting taxed at full value on, whereas with the rental, 100% of the income coming in is essentially tax-free. Right. And since it's tax-free, I get the added benefit of keeping 30% of my income.
That's true. That's true. And there's not a depreciation that we have. Like, basically all we can do is we get the long-term cap gains off of it.
Okay.
We're taxed long-term cap gains because it's over a 12-month period, right? So that's the tax difference. That would be something that rentals do have, what's the word I'm looking for? Not unequivocally, but like that's something that there just isn't an argue on.
That's something I have to say to everybody that's watching right now, is that if you're buying rentals for cash flow, you're buying them for the wrong reason. Most of the time, your monthly income from that unit is going to be ate up by some form of deferred maintenance. If you didn't, come in with the best price, best model business plan for landlording, your monthly cash flow is going to get eaten up. But you should be investing into rentals for depreciation.
Right.
Not necessarily just single family, but owning real estate as a whole has the added benefit of depreciation that many people don't take into consideration when purchasing.
And I agree with that, and that's why I try to buy like a rental a year. You know what I mean? Right. Because we do want to employ that. Now, the part to that too that I always want to bring up to people that are thinking about doing rentals is I always say, like, if you're buying a rental and you do not need to make money on that rental until you have the debt paid off, cool. You're doing it the right way. Like what you said, like if you're buying it for the cash flow, don't count on that cash flow. It's not, when you get cash flow, it's a benefit. It's an added like bonus, right? That's the thing with the owner financing side, that you get to count on that cash flow. When you lock in with an owner financed sale and you say, hey, my debt is $700, my payment coming in is $1,000, that's your gross and net income. You will always get $300 of actual get to go spend it at the store money every month. You don't have to put it aside in a savings account for, well, I know I replaced everything, but crap happens. What if they break the sliding glass door? I'm going to have to replace that. A tree falls, I'm going to have to replace that. There is stuff that's going to happen on that rental, whereas you don't have to deal with that with the owner financing side. You don't have to deal with that, and you get that big bump of cash right at the beginning, which, similar to, hey, you can't depreciate, there is no argument to, hey, but you get $10,000 to $15,000 up front. Like both sides have their...
I get 10 to 15 up front, though.
On your rental?
Yeah.
That you get to go out and spend?
Yes.
Tell me how.
Buy it at 70 cents on the dollar.
From the
cash out refi
gotcha.
at 80 cents on the dollar. Boom, money in my pocket.
So say that your renter is vacant, or it goes
Rental
vacant.
goes vacant.
Right? And then you have to re-rent it. You might have a vacant month. If you're doing pretty good, you got like a vacant month. If you're doing pretty good, you shouldn't have any vacant months, but that's unrealistic. In our world, in the default world, which would be the equivalent of having a vacancy there, you get another 10 to 15 to 20,000 bump. And here's the thing is that, so we don't want to foreclose on people. We don't want to hit that point, but it's a reality of the game, right? And even in FHA, you're going to have foreclosures. That happens. That is part of the deal with the owner financing side, where all of a sudden, if you do have to foreclose on somebody, not only do you then get to now capture all the appreciation that we were talking about before, which again should have gone up, but it's no guarantee.
Can you explain what you mean by that?
So here's the thing: is we put a buyer into a house, right? So you buy a house from somebody, you fix it up, you owner finance it to Joe Schmo. 5 years down the line, and you owner finance it at $100,000, 9.5%, $10,000 down. So boom, you get 10 grand in your pocket. They pay you their payments for 5 years, and then they just can't make it anymore. Well, then you foreclose on them. When you foreclose on them at that point in time, you're going to resell that property now, and you're going to resell that property at the newly appreciated value, right? Similar to how the rental we're talking about, the values go up over time. Values go up over time. If you foreclose and you resell, you're at that new value. So now let's say it's worth, what would you say, $120,000 reasonable?
Sounds fair to me.
We'll say $120,000. So now you sell it for $120,000. You get $12,000 in your pocket. So you get a vacancy in your rental. You just have lost a month of income. You get a vacancy in your owner financed deal. You are going to have to pay $3,000 to get that person out. But then you get to get another $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 down payment, and you sell it at a newly appreciated rate. So when you've sold it this time, you're selling it at the new rate, which is $120,000, right? But when I bought that house, we said it was at $80,000 for our underlying debt, right? Now our first buyer has paid 5 years of that debt for us. Mm-hmm. So now we might only owe $65,000, or that would be unrealistic. Now we might owe $75,000. Well, if it's a 4.5% underlying debt, $75,000. But we're selling it at $120,000. Well, all of a sudden, our net worth went from being a $10,000-$20,000 grab to now we've got a $30,000-$40,000 grab, and we're getting a $12,000 down payment, and we're starting a new 30-year note, which is going to go even longer, right?
And not to get too nitty-gritty into those details, but and again, this is all secondhand knowledge, but Mitch Stephen, when he was on here, and he's done thousands of these things.
Yeah, he's probably done 1,500, 2,000.
Yeah, his big thing was, at the end of the day, it's a wash. Like
For the down payment?
No, for like if having to kick somebody out, having to evict somebody.
Having to foreclose and
so like
repossess a house.
so for every house that he makes a shit ton of money more, he has another house that he lost a lot of money. So for him, at least what he said here was it's a wash.
Yeah. And that might be in his market because I know that he kind of specializes more in that sub
San Antonio never really has hit that.
Yeah, he kind of specializes in that sub $60,000 house, right? So appreciations, and even here where we've had massive appreciations, you look at houses that were 5 years ago worth $60,000, $70,000, they're still not worth much more than $60,000, $70,000 in most of the spots.
Fair
right?
Park.
But those houses that were worth
Park,
120 are probably worth like 400.
Yeah, but that $120,000 house, I mean,
worth
I bought
$220 now.
Yeah, it's worth $220 now, right? So you do those low end homes don't get the benefit of appreciation like that, like 50% of the median house does. You know, when you're talking like 25% of the median price, 15% of the median price, it's pretty much always going to be whatever that price point is. But we do get appreciation in these worlds that we're looking at.
All I've heard through this and talking about the foreclosure model through owner financing is Grant Kemp is an asshole and likes to take
Just like to
properties away
take
from
people's
his
houses.
people.
Just a slumlord in bank form.
Let's jump into some of these comments before we get too far behind on them. Earlier we were talking about if you had 30 grand, and this is from Chad Carlson. So, this is very subjective, but so what's the best place to put 30K if not into a rental?
We want to count down from 3?
Count down
3,
from there.
and then say it. 3, 2, 1, marketing.
There you go. That works. Yeah,
Yeah.
because you can find private money. If you can find private money, if you can get the deals. If you can get the deals, you can figure out what to do with them. And if you can figure out what to do with them, you'll eventually go up on your net worth.
Nothing is more important than getting the deals, getting in front of sellers. Obviously the education is important. Obviously you've got to know what you're doing, but don't get caught up in never knowing enough. There's still a lot of things that I don't know about real estate. For instance, I ran into a house. I got a lead on Friday for, long story short, a lot, $450 for the lot. If we were going to bulldoze it, put a new property, put another $500,000. I don't know how to do that, but Daniel does. So I called Daniel, and we're making the deal work and going through it on that side of things. But if I was so stuck in the mode of, I don't know how to do this one strategy, I'd better learn how to do that before I send marketing, because what if somebody calls me with a lead that's a bulldoze lead and I don't know how to handle it? I'd better learn how to do that, right? So the point here that I'm circling back to is you've got to have a baseline of knowledge, which you guys have from watching these videos. You've got enough to go out there. If you got 30 grand, start putting yourself in front of sellers. However that might be. If it's phone calls, if it's door knocking and that 30 grand is paying for gas, if it's paying for gas for other people to put bandit signs out, get in front of sellers.
One caveat to that is try to make that 30 grand budget out for at least 3 months.
Yeah, don't spend 30 grand tomorrow.
Yeah, you need to, because consistency is the key. So if you're marketing to Daniel, you need to touch him at least 5 to 7 times before you think he's going to even notice that you exist.
So if you got that 30 grand nugget, like he just said, budget it and ramp into it. Don't just be like, I want to send out $30,000 worth of mail this month, and then boom, you've never done mailing before and completely messed up.
Right.
Work your way into it, figure out what's working, split test and grow. Great advice.
Yeah.
Scott Moyes, he was saying, and this is going to be a pat on the back for Grant, but what most people don't know, including real estate agents, investors, and even attorneys, is that you can pass on all the fees by simply bundling all the rights of ownership to a renter, including the tax benefits. So why own a property if you can have all the advantages of ownership without putting your name on the deed or mortgage? Right? That's owner finance. Well, I don't know.
To be completely frank, I don't understand what he said.
I'm trying.
Scott, if you're watching.
What most people don't know, including real estate agent investors and even attorneys, is that you can pass on all the fee simple bundles of rights of ownership to a renter, including the tax benefits. So why own a property?
And then he follows up, being able to do this allows the landlords to increase his or her net cash flow.
Yeah, I think he might be talking about.
I guess he's landlord side.
It's
maybe he's talking about net rents or or modified gross leases. I don't really.
It's basically.
I'm going to just pretend like I don't know.
I think Scott's referring to basically a contract for deed here, because you can, essentially, because what he's talking about is the fee simple bundle of rights, and I basically think that he's talking about essentially contract for deed here, where you still own the property.
But
like
there's a
you're
contract
physically
recorded.
the owner of the property on deed, but the tenant is the one that's taking care of all the insurance and taxes and repairs and all that.
If we're
going to
talk about contract for deed and lease options, I have very limited knowledge on those two topics.
That's one of those things that at least in Texas we have some really big limitations on contract for deed where we can only go up to 180 days.
I think
on that.
Scott's in Utah.
And so I was about to say, if you're in another state, then the contract for deed is the way to go. If you're going to be doing owner financing and you're in another state, do contract for deed, because basically what it says is, instead of me saying, hey, Ryan, I'm going to sell you this house and you're going to get the deed to the property and you're going to give me $90,000 at 9.5% for the next 30 years, what it says is, hey, Ryan, I'm going to have a contract with you that says you need to pay me the equivalent of $90,000 at 9.5% for 30 years. And once you do that, then I will give you the deed to the property. It makes things for like getting the property back. It's just an eviction at that point in time because they're renting. You just have to evict them. It's not a foreclosure at that point. So yeah, I believe that that's what he's talking about, is the bundle of rights of ownership being.
And with contract for deed, you need to be aware from state to state laws change, because in some states, once they've paid in X amount of rental balance, principal balance, they actually do take equity in the property, and it's no longer a foreclosure, it's no longer an eviction, it's still a foreclosure. So a little bit of thoughts on that for those out there doing contract for deed.
Right.
Quentin was giving us love. He's like, hey, it's a good, damn good topic, but he'll be watching later. Miranda, good morning. Antonio Hernandez, Daniel dropping bombs. No love for Grant there.
No, I'm not getting any love. It's all right.
Dominique, love
sorry.
that idea.
I know who owns the company.
Yeah, right, Daniel. Lee Porter, seems like with adequate capital equity, it's easier to scale the business doing owner finance. Financing 250 properties is different business than renting 250 properties.
See, and even though I'm here to fight for owner financing, I'm not sure that I would take that stance, because with adequate funding and financing and equity, either model's going to work. The reason why I'm fighting for owner financing is that most people watching this video do not have millions of dollars in their back pocket to go out and spend. If you've got millions of dollars to go out and spend, again, then you can afford to take down a bunch of rentals and not have to get paid from them until their debt is paid off, or buy in such quantities that you're able to get discounts and package deals and that kind of stuff. That's a different model, right? You might not need the biggest returns at that point in time for it to still make sense of you, because that scale. I'm not going to say that financing 250 properties is easier than renting 250 properties. As a matter of fact, I might say the opposite. I might say it's easier to rent 250 properties because you can just put them on MLS and have any old realtor bring you a renter. Whereas with owner financing, you do have to have somebody with a brain that understands financing, discussing terms with each one of those people and figuring out the terms that are going to make sense with all of that. So I'm not sure that I would agree with that for either.
So what I hear is
like to throw
Daniel wins. That's what I just heard.
We keep harping on the massive amounts of liquidity up front to obtain a rental portfolio. If you are buying right, that is not the case. You can amass a rental portfolio with limited money out of pocket. I'm not going to go to say is no money out of pocket, because you're going to have to get some money to get it rolling. But as you get it rolling, scaling it up when you're buying right becomes a relationship with your bank, a trust that was built with your bank, and you can scale it up without millions of dollars. But over time, we're talking about 250 properties versus 250 owner finance notes, I'd take a blend of the two. I would take a blend of the two. And I think we're at a point in time on this subject where we could probably continue some questions, but we could possibly pivot towards so much owner finance versus rentals and move towards owner finance and rentals, and how to choose what is your better choice for the time being.
And I'd like to point out also, it just depends on what strategy you're in, because if you did have on the note of 250, if you had 250 owner finance notes, that's a shit ton of money. But once Grant dies, or once the 20, 30 years, I say Grant, but once those notes are paid off, you have a large bank account. Whereas if you had 250 rentals, you pass away, and if you put that in some sort of trust, and I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a financial planner, but if you put that in some kind of holding mechanism that your grandkids, your great-grandkids, your ancestors, or whoever will benefit from that real estate, whereas over the owner finance model, you got a lump sum check. Is that fair?
Well, you could. I mean, because you can
Simplified.
Yeah, it's simplified. You can still.
I'm here to simplify. That's my role.
Pass that owner financing income on. The reality of it is that most people. Again, we're almost talking a little bit of edge case here, because most people, 99% of the people, are not buying rentals that they're going to hold for the next 50 years. It's just not going to happen, right? I think that is a benefit to a rental, and that is one of the things that you should account for, is that you can hold it for more than 30 years. But if you look at it realistically,
I think your hold on a single family should be 5 to 7 years.
And also, I'd like to point out that unfortunately, a ton of investors, several of their rental properties were bought to wholesale, they were bought to flip, and they weren't able to wholesale it, and they weren't able to flip it, so it turned into a de facto rental. I'm not saying that's all the time, but I'm just saying that does happen, and that's one of those rentals that you're like, I don't really want it, but it's there.
Hey, Ronnie, hey, Randy, hey, Byron, Daniel, Eileen, Quentin, Chad, Sean, Jason, all of y'all for watching. Thank you, Joseph.
I think to Daniel's point, I think it's a good point to really think about, like we're talking about, where are you in your abilities? What do you have to offer and leverage, and what are you looking for to get out of your portfolio? Because that's how you're going to really decide which side you need to fall on, right? You're right. I am harping on, hey, you've got to have cash to have the rentals, and a lot of that does hover back to the fact that you need today money to buy groceries. I'm thinking going into a full-blown full-time job, and you're saying, cash out refis will get you that money in there too. I'll just put it this way, and this is probably, this is my I guess limited circle of influence here. I just don't see people getting out there and making that into a successful business very commonly.
It takes a lot of time.
It's the right market cycle, in my opinion. It's just like with owner financing has its, like Subject 2 has its strong markets, rentals have their strong markets, rehabs have their strong markets. Every acquisition strategy has a specific market cycle that it works the best in. It'll work during all of them, but it has the ones that'll work the best in. I think for me, when it comes down to owner financing and rentals, they both have their very strong spots, and you should analyze each and every property based on a few key things. In my opinion, I love Sub 2. I'm not the master of it. Grant is by all means the master of Sub 2 in my world. But with Sub 2, as an acquisition model, we often look at the disposition of it through a wrap. I think that leaves a lot of money on the table. If we're looking to purchase Subject 2, each and every property should be looked at based upon its current desire to be put in your portfolio, and more so than just that, what's going on with the neighborhood? Imagine if you had a whole bunch of Sub 2s in Fair Park or Winnetka Heights or the Bishop Arts 10 years ago, and you held on to those as rentals instead of flipping them. Every property you get a chance to buy Sub 2, you should look at what that market's planning to do over the next 10 years. Are we looking at a small appreciating micro market that we're going to look and see 7, 8, 9% appreciation on yearly? If that's the case, there's no way in hell I would ever want to owner finance that, because I am going to skyrocket that thing as a rental. But on the other flip side, if I'm in an area of town where I see the property's never going to appreciate, it's never going to appreciate. It's never going to appreciate higher than the standard. And it's in an area that I don't want to be a landlord. It's an area I don't want to show up and deal with tenants, toilets, and trash. Those are the ones I would own or finance all day long. And as a day-to-day basis and a decision goes by, do I feel like this thing's going to appreciate rapidly over time? Can I cash flow it as a rental? Do I want to own it and be a tenant, toilet, and trash kind of guy? Or is this in an area where I don't want to deal with any of that, but I want a fixed return with arbitrage off of a yield spread between the wrap and the underlying debt? I have to look at every property individually, just like that.
And it's very true there, and I agree with that. And that's why we talk about. I mean, if you've ever heard me talk, you always hear me talk about having a bat belt of tools and being able to pull out the right tool for the right situation. And that's a perfect realization of why that is. Because when you truly understand all of these different strategies, that's when you get to mix and match. Because those of you who have watched Grant teach me something, anytime I go into talking about Subject 2 and we're using wraparound models, I try to be very clear. I am just showing you one disposition of this, right? Because you can, once you buy it with Subject 2 or owner finance, you can do anything you want. You could sell it retail, you could rent it, you can, whatever you want. You can just leave it there vacant so that whatever. But with the Subject 2 side of things, going into buying Sub 2 and holding as a rental, one thing to consider there is the big benefit to Sub 2 is the lack of cash out of pocket. To have, like we talk about the tenants, toilets, and trash, right? The argument, the very true argument of, hey, if you go in there and fix everything up, not just the lipstick, just replace everything brand new from the start, you don't have to worry about that deferred maintenance. The challenge to doing that if you've acquired sub 2 is, do you have the capital to put into the property in a second lien position that's going to allow you to go ahead and do those repairs to make sure that you don't have that deferred maintenance down the line? That's something that, like I've got a lot of lenders that don't have more than $70,000 in their IRA account, but they still want it to be in real estate. And so I work with those guys as second lien money to pay for that kind of stuff. I might buy a house subject to, but then I need $30,000 to go in there and fix the house up. So that might be one of those lenders that lends in, right? If you don't have that, it becomes a little bit more challenging, because if you do take it over subject to, the point is you don't want to put a whole lot of your actual cash out of pocket into this property. And if you're not putting a whole lot of cash out of pocket into that property, then you are going to have those deferred maintenance issues if you rent the property. Whereas if you do just sell it outright, if it's good for now, the owner is going to be the one that has to deal with that in 5 years, which is your new owner financed buyer. Now, that deferred maintenance, again, if you were in Bishop Arts 10 years ago, is far outweighed by the equity gain that you've gotten from the appreciation.
For those of you listening nationally, we're talking about Bishop Arts and stuff like that. Bishop Arts 10 years ago, 12 years ago, $80,000 to $160,000 neighborhood, somewhere in that ballpark range. Now it's like $400,000 to $500,000 ballpark range, and if you're doing some properties, $800,000 to $900,000 range. Yeah. So there was a lot of appreciation that hit that market cycle, and if you pick those properties up sub 2, because you were paying attention to what was going on in that area and you held on to it, you would have had 10 houses at $100,000 each, so you had $1 million in underlying debt. But now you've got, $8-9 million worth of assets. So you could have caught a huge appreciation wave and made yourself a multimillionaire just off of that acquisition grab on a bunch of sub 2 deals that you have no money out of pocket on.
And the cool thing about the subject to financing on that is, so for those of you who don't understand sub 2 is essentially taking over on payments. And we've got a Grant Teach Me Something earlier on about sub 2 specifically. I don't want you to say taking over payments to your buyers, but just that's what we're going to refer to it as here. The cool thing about that is that you're taking over on the terms that they've got. So now if you're buying sub 2, that is owner financing, and you're getting underlying debt at 3%, 3.5%, 4% that has 20, 22, 25 years left on it. Whereas you're not going to get those terms from a bank on a non-owner occupied investment property, right? You might be looking at 6.5%, 7%, something like that if you were to be financing that through a bank loan for the rental portfolio. So you can really help yourself out by taking over on that debt, getting a much smaller percentage, a much better term through owner financing, and then turn around if you like it rentals and capture the rental side like that.
So real quick, I do want to point out that earlier, Mr. Captain Debate over here, his argument was, or whatever. Clearly a debate champion. Quentin he threw in a large comment. He listed out a lot of pros of the rentals, but then some of his cons against the owner finance. If you actually watch some of the Grant Teach Me Somethings, we'll address them. Like one of them is like, what if the buyer files for bankruptcy? Our very first episode of Grant Teach Me Something kind of shows how you can get around that.
The 2 LLC model.
The 2 LLC model, you can foreclose on yourself. And then his biggest thing was the taxes. Mm-hmm. Because the tax benefits of a landlord and owning property. What are the tax benefits of owner finance?
Well, and again, we addressed that a little bit earlier here, in that you're not going to get depreciation from an owner finance deal. You're taking it as a long-term cap gain, right? Which is
It's still better
than nothing, right. But it's not. It's installment income that's coming in.
Sean Markey was saying finishing his first owner finance this week, and only going that route going forward. Thanks for solidifying his decision.
Mm-hmm. Great. I hope I didn't solidify that decision, because that's not what I would want to make sure that we pushed across.
I think towards the end you want to blend it.
Yeah.
The end goal is blend.
And can I throw something in real quick here? We've got. Because I'm looking at all these team rentals here, and can I make that an argument for why owner financing is so good? Is because other people aren't hitting it, right? I have become massively successful in this industry because I can pick up the scraps after everybody else that has to go in there and buy at 75% or 80%. I can buy a property. Here's another, we didn't even address this in the debate. I can buy a property at 100% of its value and still turn a 6-figure profit on a 50% median house because I know how to owner finance it.
when you owner finance.
Right, exactly. And so we talk about, and you'll see me, I think last week actually, we drew this chart out, or 2 weeks ago, we drew the chart out of like, hey, if you can buy at under 75%, you have the ability to flip it. If you can buy at 80% or below, you can hold it or maybe wholesale it. If you can buy from 80% to 100%, you can owner finance it. If it's 100% and above, then you're at a short sale. Hold on. And then with that owner financing model right there, you're able to turn huge profits off of something that otherwise would have been a trash lead for you. And that's one of the huge benefits here. But because everybody here is just defaulting to rentals, I'm coming in behind just sweeping up.
And that's where the tool belt comes in.
And making money off of it.
What I was going to say is, and it's only because it's pertinent, that's the word we're going to use. Literally, Randy McFeely just picked up a deal. I think he closed on it today or yesterday.
Did he? Congratulations, Randy.
Yeah, good job, Randy.
You're the one that told me. Or maybe
Well,
he hadn't. I don't know.
I saw a Facebook post where he said he was closing on it, but I didn't know it was.
Anyway,
either way.
but that deal was 100% retail, but he got the seller to owner finance to him,
Yeah.
and he's turning it into a free rental.
Yeah.
So that's 100%, and it's a landlord do play.
So
Yeah, and
he
probably
came
has
to-
some pretty sweet financing terms on it.
Yeah, he came to one of our masterminds, and we started discussing this particular property, and he was like, I don't know what to do with this. I might just let it go. And we ended up talking him through a way that he could acquire that property as a rental, cash flow it, have limited to no money out of pocket in the acquisition of this property, and still having a great asset to build wealth for himself over the next 5 to 10 years. So, just because this is where knowing your tool belt comes into play.
But
Something
also
that we
having a
stress.
good enough network to lean on.
Yeah, because he didn't really know what to do, and we just sat down in that mastermind. It's like, hey, let's do this, and this. Let's shift over the acquisition for this, and then boom, within 24 hours, we had an agreed contract, and now we're closing on it less than a
that's
week and a half
awesome.
later. So going back to the tool belt, though, it is very important to not get tunnel vision on your strategy. Each and every strategy has a property that it works great for. And when you're looking at these properties, you need to have enough background. You don't need to have enough background. You need to have enough network to know when to do what with certain properties. Like when he's talking about that 80 to 100 cent range, that is an absolute great opportunity to do owner finance as an acquisition. On the disposition side, you're going to have to look at that property once again and decide, do you want it as a rental or do you want it as a note? There's definite benefits to both in specific market cycles and in specific sub-markets. So,
Yeah,
just
totally.
things to think about.
And on that note, another thing that Quentin asks is, well, all I want to know is which one actually builds net worth. Well, they both do. I've got a 7-figure net worth, right? Whatever. I'm a millionaire. Off of I got to add up, and it's based off of owner
Carry the two.
financing. And so that because I've got arbitrage, the difference between my note balances and my interest rates and everything. Well, rentals are going to build your net worth too. It's just coming off of the equity that you own in that property. You might own equity in a property. I own equity in notes.
Yeah.
And properties. I've got a couple of rentals too.
And going back to the comments, Miranda chooses Grant because he's using the mug.
She would choose Grant.
I just went, the mug is too small for me. I need a bigger mug. Trenton, this is like watching a Rocky movie.
I've got a
We remember that movie very differently.
We've got a statement here, or a comment, I don't want to jump too far ahead, from Lee Porter that I'd like to discuss for a second. It says, Albert Einstein quote, "Compounding interest is the 8th wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it." I love the quote, and he finishes that off with, "Team owner finance for big ideas." Now, I'm not 100% certain there, but I might be putting a foot in my mouth, but when you're doing owner financing, you're not on the winning side of compounding interest. You're on the losing side of compounding interest.
Yeah, it's not compounding with owner financing because you're what's the word I'm looking for?
Because they're getting principal pay down and
Yeah.
you're on the losing side of.
Well, and I wouldn't necessarily. You have an amortizing loan. Compounding interest would be like, hey, I've got $100,000 out on the market. That $100,000 is going to make 10%, and so next year I've got $110,000 on the market, and that's going to make 10%. So next year I've got $121,000 on the market, and that's how that compounding interest works. With an amortized loan, you've got $100,000 out on the market at 10%. and you're going to make your 10% on that $100,000, but at the end of the year, they're going to owe you $98,000. And then the next year, you're going to make $9,800. And then the next year, they're going to owe you $97,000, and you're going to make $9,700. You know, it's like you're making it on your amortized amount.
So Lee, unless you have some other thoughts to throw in on that, on some different things that we're not seeing here, I actually think owner financing is the opposite of compounding.
Yeah.
And then going back to Joseph, he was saying which one wins out depends each individual situation. I don't believe there's a clear-cut and dried answer to the question of rent versus seller finance. That right there, my friend, is the correct answer, because the two favorite words in real estate are
It depends.
It depends.
It depends.
Every single deal, the two favorite words is it depends. Should I use this? It depends.
Yeah.
So anyway, yes, you are absolutely correct. The answer is it depends. Quentin is on Team Daniel, Team Reynolds. Jeff Steele, what's the timeline for eviction of a no-pay renter versus a no-pay owner finance?
It depends on your state.
Yeah, it depends on your state, first and foremost. But you do, go back and watch episode 1 of Grant. I'm glad I chose to do that on episode 1, because it makes it easier to point back.
I just wish we knew what we were doing
on
the quality of the video. We probably need to redo that, just because the quality is kind of like we're new to live streaming.
So, yeah, what I talk about there is how you can, within legal means, after speaking to your attorneys, after speaking to your CPA, understanding that I am neither an attorney or a CPA, nor is
we have to get
Daniel.
really deep into
Entertainment purposes only, man.
Entertainment purposes only, but through my consultations and through my brainstorming, that was where I came up with the 2 LLC idea, and that is basically where you are able to get much the same turnaround time on a foreclosure as you would be on an eviction.
Versus a landlord, if you know the right guy who hypothetically knows the right guy, it's relatively quickly.
Well, and here's another thing actually to go on the owner financing side.
Kidding. This is where I say I am kidding.
I'm not an attorney. I'm not a mafia member.
I know no guys. And those guys are not sitting over there on the couch. That hypothetically, I don't know.
Anyway,
back to the topic.
So that's actually going to be, I'm going to turn that into an argument for the seller financing side, because with seller financing, if you do the 2 LLC system, yes, it's going to cost you more money to foreclose on somebody than it is that you're going to have to evict. Because, eviction, you're going to be spending, a few $100s. Foreclosure, you're going to be spending a few $1,000s. However, when you resell that foreclosure, you're making $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. So it washes you out at least that amount.
Hopefully.
But here's the thing. With a 2 LLC system foreclosure, your owner-occupant files bankruptcy, and you say that's really cute. With a tenancy, does bankruptcy affect the tenancy at all?
I've never had to personally deal with it, but I've heard from a really good friend of mine that went through it that it's a mother effer.
Exactly. So you can actually run into some pretty hairy issues if your tenant decides to play the legal game pretty hard with you. Whereas when you've got an owner finance property with a 2 LLC system, they can try to play the legal game all they want with the LLC that they're interacting with. But guess what? We have an LLC that's in a superior position to that can just wipe the whole game and call it moot, and we get the house back.
Also, remember, you're talking to a panel of Texas investors, and
Yes.
as Texas investors, we know our Texas shit.
Yeah.
If you are outside of Texas,
Please consult your attorneys.
find your Texas investors. Or you're not Texas investors.
So Marcus Carrington, what would you do about needed repairs to resell the property after you foreclose? How would you finance those repairs?
Same kind of thing. So if you're foreclosing and you need to do some repairs at that point in time, just like I mentioned before, there is a lot of second lien money out there. Now, if you are somebody who has a self-directed IRA account that has less than $70,000 in it, you're not going to be able to do like a first lien loan. Really, it's going to be very difficult for you to find a house, buy it, and fix it up with that amount of money, especially if you're under $50,000. So what you need to do, is email me at what you do is work with somebody. You need to be very careful with who you work with. I mean, my lenders work with me because I've got a good reputation. I've been around for a long time.
Can you emphasize that one more time?
If you're working in a second lien position, you need to be very careful who you are working with, because your money could be just completely wiped out, and I'm just going to leave it at that. You could never get it back, and it's totally likely that could happen.
And I would throw out there also, if you're planning on being private capital for anybody, make sure you vet the potential investor tremendously make sure that they can produce HUDs where their lenders are getting paid, because there's nothing more frustrated than calling up one of your private capital guys, like, hey, I need some money. Be like, oh, I'm not doing this anymore because I just lost some money.
Yeah. So if you do have to foreclose on the property and you do need to put some money back into it, that's where you're gonna need to work with your second lien lender people, or if you've just got the cash to do it, just do it, right? Because again, you're in a situation that when you sell that property again, there's a good chance that you might just wash on it. Let's say that you've got $3,000 in legal fees that you have to pay for the foreclosure, and then you've got to put in $7,000 worth of repairs. So all of a sudden you're out 10 grand out of pocket. Well, guess what? When you resell that property, you should be getting a $10,000 or $15,000 down payment. So you might just wash at zero, but you're starting a new 30-year mortgage, right? With new terms at a newly appreciated price. So just like we talked about before, the benefits are huge. I always say you don't want to put people into a house that you think you might have to foreclose on. It is very important, ethically, morally, that you're putting people into a home that you think can repay you. But if you do have to foreclose on somebody, you're going to make a ton more money. At the end of the day, it's going to make you a ton more money, and that's just the reality of it.
So let's get back to comments, because we've been here for an hour. So let's keep going.
I like Chad. Okay, Grant, you've at least opened my eyes to options. Team, whatever the deal calls for. That is the correct answer.
Well, actually, early. I'm still like 3 pages back.
Roll through these real quick.
Chad Carlson, looking forward to the June 12th event. Christina, love the info. Hey, we need you on the show too. So I know, shout out from Houston. Elizabeth, we'll see you Friday, but thanks for watching. Kathy, Propellia is a great resource for investors. Woo-hoo. She did not get paid to say that, but thank you. Jeffson, hi everyone. Hey back. Elizabeth, agree with Grant. We are team owner finance.
What? I got one.
Oh, wait. In one comment later, Team Daniel. She changed her mind within one comment.
No, she says true, Daniel.
I take Team Daniel.
True, Daniel.
My dyslexia is all
Thanks,
Team
Elizabeth.
Daniel. Nugget, yep. Your network is your net worth. Very true. Okay, Grant, you at least opened my mind for options. Team, okay, that's what you just said. Aaron Perez, how many owner finance deals can you do per year? I guess that gets me into the taxes. If you owner finance 10 properties a year, that's 10 property taxes I have to pay. Is there a safe number to do per year? Sorry if it's a dumb question. There are no dumb questions.
Go for it. Grab this taxes.
Because here's the thing, is this, and this is not a direct, this is just a general thing that I see in the market that I absolutely want everybody watching this video to get out of their head. I cannot tell you how many people won't make money on a deal because somebody else is going to make money on that deal. How many times have you run into a wholesale situation where the wholesale buyer was fine with the price until they figured out how much the wholesaler was going to make?
All the time.
Right? And then they all of a sudden they freak out and they don't want to do the deal anymore. Now, I don't run into that, but I've seen that happen with people. Never pass up on money because of what somebody else is going to make on that money, even if that somebody else is good old Uncle Sam. If you're going to make a profit on that deal, do the deal. Right? If it makes sense in your numbers, do the deal.
Real quick, it's been a couple years since I've been in college, but and I know neither one of y'all did the whole college thing, but in economics, it's like one of the rules of economics is if you're going to make $1 and they're going to make $10, what do you care? You made $1.
Yeah.
Would you give up $1 so instead of them making 10, they only make 5? No, right. That's stupid. So make the $1. Who cares if they make 10? I really am sorry if I'm butchering that economics law, that principle, but at the end of the day, if you're going to make $1 and they're going to make 10, who gives a shit? You made $1.
You made $1. So, and then to directly answer the question of how many owner finance deals can you do per year, as many as you want. Like I said, I have months where I'll do 10 or 15 deals. You can do as many properties as you want to do with owner financing, and that's one of the big benefits to it. Now, obviously, everything has its cycle. There's going to be seasons where it's easier than other seasons, but yeah.
Another Daniel Livingston: many options are better than only one. Exactly. So the second rule of real estate: first one is it depends. The second one is I don't know how to word that. But
let's get through to the questions because we're starting to lose traction here.
My bad.
Understand.
Well, I don't,
Special contract needed to wrap up.
But I just gave them a shout out, and then you're going to skip them. But that's true. Yes.
Well,
More
yeah,
options.
they can
We're
read
losing
the
traction.
Well, let's do the question. So, is there a special contract needed to wrap an existing seller existing mortgage?
Nope.
Uh,
Nope. Yeah. Yeah, most definitely.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, positively, yes. You have to make sure that you are using the proper contracts. So, here in Texas, Scott Horn is one of the most well-known attorneys. Matt Aycock is a friend of Propelio's. The dude is brilliant. He's going to be able to help you out with that kind of stuff. But you need to talk to an attorney to get the proper contracts for your state, because anytime you're buying or selling a property that has an underlying debt to it, there are special laws that apply to that need to be adhered by.
Sweet.
So, real quick, because Daniel wants to get out of here, that's what I got. Anyway.
We've got the book giveaway. Don't forget about the book giveaway.
So, what I was going to get to is drop your comments, your last opportunity to get in the book giveaway. Book giveaway, let's choose 3 books, and then you get to pick one. So, I know your book is Influence, right?
Yeah, I like Influence.
Your book is The One.
I like The One Thing. That is my go-to.
And I'm currently
now, I like
reading
it.
Crush It, not Grant Cardone, Gary V. So we're gonna, whoever wins, you get to pick one of those 3 books.
Nice.
Sally, she was saying.
Congratulations, Sally. Sally and Keith Riddle. Those are good people, and she said she's
First
closing her
subject
first subject
TLDL.
too.
Okay,
Congratulations, Sally.
Yeah.
cool. Elizabeth, second that. DFW Maria meetup. Cool. So, anyways, last chance. Going once, going twice. There's a lag, and I'm gonna push the button. What do you want to push the button?
You're gonna push the button.
Push the button. Start.
Let's see who our winner is today.
Ryan Harper.
Propelio.
Did last time, yeah.
Let's see who wins.
Jason
Jason Witherspoon. You have now
Jason
won a book.
Witherspoon.
We will send you a private message. Figure out which one you want.
All right, so final thoughts, Mr. Daniel, because the show is called Grant Teach Me Something. Final thoughts on this whole debate of rentals versus owner finance.
I do believe that the final answer is team whatever the deal, whatever it takes. I mean, there are opportunities where owner finance far exceeds rentals. There are opportunities where rentals far exceed owner finance. And there are definite times where the blended model of the two is by far the best choice. So always take a look at it. Always make sure you have the right people in your network and on your team to take care of any property that hits your leads funnel, no matter what it is.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and I agree 100% with that. That's, we took both sides. Both of us have rentals and owner financed properties. I think that's indicative of the fact. I mean, we do wholesaling, we do fix and flips, we do rentals, we do owner financing. If you've heard of it, we do it, and I think it's really important that you have that bat belt. You pull out the tools in the right situation, and you surround yourself with the right people. Again, there's going to be times where, that's how me and Daniel met initially, is because he knew that I was the owner financing guy, and
I had no clue.
He had no clue how to do that, and so he contacted me, and we worked together, and I showed him how to do that stuff, and he's made a bunch of money off of owner financing deals, and I know that he's able to do things that I'm unable to do, and so you've got to have that network around you so that all you need to know is how to identify that you don't know something. And that's what doing at least a cursory viewing of these kinds of lessons and getting the idea of what's out there is going to really help you out with. Because when you do run into a deal where somebody owes more than you're willing to spend on that house, maybe it's time to reach out to me and say, hey, look, they owe 82, it's worth 100, I'm only willing to pay 75. Is this an owner finance deal? They're willing to sell it for what they owe. Then you've got somebody like me who can help you through that deal, and everybody makes money.
So at the end of the day, you've got 2 answers to this equation. Team, it depends, and team, build your network.
You got Jeff Steele, Team Ryan.
So, subtle plug to Creative Cash Flow and go.
Yeah, CreativeCashFlow.com. If you like what you're seeing, if you like seeing stuff, really detailed out, I like to take a very pragmatic look at things and run the numbers and show you exactly how to do stuff from start to finish. CreativeCashFlow.com is going to be where you can go to learn that. Wednesday mornings, I'm driving in saying, hey, what are we going to learn today? And then at CreativeCashFlow.com, you've got your 1, 2, 3, 4 step to go from never knowing anything about owner financing to busting out multiple owner financed deals every month. So I suggest you look there, and then I do personal mentoring as well, which we can talk about there.
Subtle plug, Propelio and Go.
So on Propelio's side, Propelio is a software tool for real estate investors that you absolutely need to check out. We provide websites for real estate investors, access to MLS comps, MLS deals. We also provide lead lists like pre-foreclosures and probates. We are drastically expanding what we're doing right now, so always be checking back for where we're going. Above and beyond that, I have my own show on Monday. Next Monday, we're going to be talking, I think it's what we call it, Daniel Run Your Mouth Monday, something like that. We haven't came up with a name for it yet, but next week I'm going to be talking about probates. I'm going to be talking about getting a hold of properties where the owners have died, how to handle transferring titles. So we're going to talk about that on next Monday.
As far as what we got going on here, please help us out with a share. Please help us out with the likes and the hearts. If you liked what you saw today and you know somebody that should be watching this, tag them in the comments, and that's about it. Good? You good?
Team Propelio.
Slow-mo high five.
There we go. Oh, there we go.